The kitchen, the final frontier, the place where many of our goals, whether it be mental as well as physical, are fought. So let's begin winning those wars, one battle at a time. And the best way to do that is to begin with having some healthy eating habits. Now, we understand that you gotta eat. It's important. Proper nutrition is crucial if you want to have good mental, physical, as well as spiritual health. Think about it. You have to rest, recover, recuperate. In addition, it's important for you to sleep in order to grow. All this helps out with cognitive functioning and our overall energy throughout the day. There's also an understanding that, well, food has a little component in regards to our reward system. And because of that, it can also lead to some problems for people. And many times, the food that we put in our body and the results that it has can affect our overall performance as well as our mental health well-being, self-esteem, and various other aspects of our life. So with those in mind, let's begin discussing how we can integrate some good, healthy eating habits. Now, if you're going to have a winning game plan, it's important that you have a winning mentality. Number one, it's important that we be intentional about what we put in our bodies. Now, what do I mean about intentional? Well, if you have an electric car, you're not going to try to fuel it with diesel. So don't go into a situation where you set yourself up by putting the wrong fuel around you. Think about the food that you keep in your environment. See, when we live haphazardly when it comes to our food, many times it's what we simply discover, but it's because we truly made it convenient. So begin by storing healthy snacks. That way you have to actually be more intentional about violating than you do have to be with being intentional about compliance. Because you have to be intentional about trying to find something, especially if you don't have it within your environment. So start there. And number two, the most important, actually probably more important than number one, but it goes in line. You don't want to think of this as restriction. You want to think of this as relationship. I want to have a healthy relationship with the food I put in my body. Much like I want to have a healthy relationship with the people I put around my body. It doesn't want to be about restriction because restriction feels like punishment at any age. And every time you tell yourself that you can't do something, there's going to be another part of you that says, oh, yes, you can. And if not, there'll be somebody around you who's doing the same thing who'll try you the same way. I want you to think about this. How many times have you said, nah, I had enough, and a person says, come on, you can have just one more drink. You can have just one more piece of cake. And that's all we need. The power of persuasion. It's the only power the devil got. So, you want to make sure you're looking at this more as a relationship. And in a relationship, I'm in control. I get to say what I choose to have in and around me and what I want it to do for me. And that empowers me to then form the relationship the way I want to. So when I want to stay in a relationship, I can have it. When I have a little bit of rocky relationship, when I say I'm going to cheat, it's still a relationship choice, not a restriction. Another key factor is because we understand that food has a part of the reward system, right? Think about it, dopamine. Three things dopamine: food, drugs, sex. They're the things that get us in the most trouble. In this case, food, unfortunately, in this world, has two of those components. Because not only do you have to deal with the natural component of food, but we live in a world in which food can be interacted and contaminated with all types of drugs and chemicals. From the time it goes into the ground, they're trying to modify things all the way up until it's packaged and given to you. So recognize that certain chemicals that are put in our food are drugs. And that's why people can get addicted to several foods, and they tend to be the same kind of foods. You notice most people don't get addicted to the natural foods. It's the snacks, it's the chips, it's the things that have been processed and modified. It's a rough game out there, and that's why you want to combat it with as much knowledge as possible. So then comes the action, because, well, you can have the best plans in the world, but they mean nothing if you don't put it into action. The first thing we already talked about, and you know what it is. Stay away from the drugs. Try to limit the food that has the most processed sugars, the most sodium, the ultra processed foods. Stay away from those. If you're going to eat something sweet, try to lean towards things that are more natural in nature. And so you also want to stay hydrated, because many times the body can confuse the need for thirst for the need for food. And in those situations, that's another reason why it's important to have healthy snacks available, especially citrus. Think grapefruits, oranges, tangerines, things that can have a component that also consists of a lot of water. And in that mind state, continue to drink water. So healthy fruits, snacks, water, limiting the sugar, sodium, ultra-processed foods. Another thing that's important is limiting the alcohol. Alcohol hits you on two heads. One, it has its own set of calories. 7, right in between a carb and a fat. But generally it's going to be burned last because it's an unnatural fuel. And then there's disinhibition, right? That's what alcohol does. Alcohol exacerbates an emotion and disinhibits behavior. So if you find yourself being an emotional eater and you add alcohol to the mix, then you're even more inclined to find yourselves eating excessively, drinking, and then if you have the guilt and remorse and feeling bad secondary to that, the urge to drink again, which is only going to worsen it. So you don't want to put yourself on a vicious cycle. That doesn't mean you can't drink alcohol. You're an adult. You can put anything in your body that you want to. But you want to have a healthy relationship with the alcohol that you're putting in your body. Know what you want it to do for you. And be realistic about what it has the ability to do for you. So, another key component that comes in is how you cook it, right? Hey, you've always heard it said, it's not what you said, but it's how you said it. Take that same mentality when you come into the kitchen. It's not about what you're eating, but also how you're preparing it. So try to lean towards healthy ways of cooking. Think of things like broiling, air frying, grilling, baking. Try to avoid things that have you dipping it in a lot of grease and a lot of butter. In addition, despite what you see on a lot of online, drain your meat. Get some of the excess fat out of the food. Trust me, it makes a world of difference. So when you go into it with this mind state and you recognize the limit of the rewards and you eat the foods that are more natural, you're then picking up the healthy habits that you want. Now, that being said, you also need to give yourself a break. The goal is to maintain habits for the bulk of the time. Yet, let's be honest, food is a part of our celebration. It's part of our time with our family. It reminds us of trips that we've taken, the way grandma used to do things. That's important. So you want to take the time to separate and say, hey, I'm going to enjoy these things for this purpose. See, in those situations, you're still following the rules because you were intentional. I'm intentionally going to enjoy myself. Sometimes you can prepare yourself in that manner by depriving yourself or limiting what you eat maybe earlier in the day. Or compensate by saying, this time I'm going to do some more walking too. Whatever you do, when you have it with an intentionality, you don't have to carry around the remorse or the guilt. Understand what you're doing to yourself and enjoy yourself. You got to eat. Now, you also want to know what your metabolic needs are, because many times we want to set a limit or a goal. So understand how many calories you need in order to get where you want to go. And that way, if you're trying to make a change or lose weight, you can be realistic and look at your goals and set them based upon what you truly need, and then make the modifications to slowly get down to where your body begins to adapt by burning any excess. When you're doing healthy eating habits, you want to try to combine that with good exercise. In part because when you find yourself making changes and eating healthier, you're going to get this sensation to move. And you're going to love the combination of what extra movement as well as limitations and a healthy relationship with your food can do for you. Right? So, just to summarize real quick, avoid the drugs, right? Stay away from the sugar, too much of the salt, the ultra processed. And in this case, consider marijuana. Remember this, that too can have a person disinhibit how much they're going to eat. And that's not really good for your body. But also make sure you stay hydrated. Make sure that you limit what options you have within your weight. So be intentional when you go to the grocery store. Have a list. Check it twice. Include healthy snacks. Make the right environment so that you can make the changes you want to make. And now let me limit. I got to warn you about this. It's important to make this a household thing. Now, particularly for people who have children, no, you're not going to throw all the cereal away or stop them from eating things. But you can teach them healthy ways about using the air fryer instead of the deep fryer. You can try to limit some of the processed things you allow them to eat. You can show them the importance of having healthy snacks. In this, you begin to set the example of what they should follow. And so I just want to encourage you. Try to adapt healthy eating habits. Look for ways to improve what you already got working for you. And allow yourself the freedom to enjoy food, the memories, the engagement, and all the joy that it can bring. For tips like this and more, share, like, and follow Dr. Michael Anthony Murphy. Also be on the lookout for the Allele Ascension. God bless. Peace.